Okay, let's talk about Shai. So Shai is a beach on the Olympic coast, one of many beaches that you can backpack within the Olympic National Park. Now, Shai itself is actually just inside the northern boundary of the national park, and that'll come into play here in a second when we're talking about photography. But it's an area that you need to get a wilderness backcountry permit for. And so this is a trip that's been in planning for over a year within my friends group. And back in April, we had to get our permits from the national park in order to be able to backpack this area. But things all came together and it's definitely happening. So let's take a look at the area and the route and talk a little bit about that. The Olympic coast here is almost the most northwestern point in the contiguous United States. So Nia Bay, just up here on the Makah Indian Reservation, is actually more north than us, but just barely. And the trail itself actually starts outside of the national park, so you do need a Makah Reservation recreation permit as well. So there's some additional overhead when it comes to planning this to make sure that you have the right passes and things, just so that you can park your car overnight before you hike out onto the beach, as well as having the right permits to be backpacking down there. So the hike itself is only about 4 miles, and halfway into the hike is basically all the elevation change that you go through more or less on this hike. So it's fairly flat. You drop about 200 feet down to the beach at the point where you cross the border into the park, just through a little series of switchbacks. So really not that bad at all. Hiking on the sand itself is going to be a little bit more challenging for the last couple of miles, but honestly, it's probably not that bad. Definitely not the most strenuous hike you can find. Now, in terms of this, the national park boundary, the thing that's really important here is that you can actually we will be able to actually hike back outside the national park boundary for photography. And so that will allow us to fly drones if we want to, for drone photography and drone videography. And we're going to do that. So if you see drone footage from this trip, know that it was all filmed outside the northern boundary of the national park. So we were not filming anything illegally within the park itself. Now, there's one other oddity about flying in this area that I'll get into, and I just grab my phone here and I'll show you. In the FAA's app before you fly, you can see something a little bit strange here. This is the boundary for the national park. So like I said, in this area will be totally fine to fly from. So we want to launch and pilot drones from there. It should be okay and totally legal. If you look at the sea stacks that are off the coast, they're all highlighted in yellow. And if you tap on those, you'll see that they are actually designated as wilderness areas. And that's because seabirds nest on the sea stacks in order to protect themselves from predators. So all of the sea stacks along the Olympic coast, all the way down to California, are nesting habitats for seabirds. And so you definitely want to not disturb wildlife from an ethics standpoint with your drone. If the ethical implications of disturbing wildlife and not being a responsible photographer aren't enough of a deterrent to prevent you from flying your drone near the sea stacks, I will tell you this as well. Seabirds get a lot more aggressive around protecting their nests when they in these nesting sites, and they will fly after your drone and try to attack it. And if a seagull gets hold of your drone and hits one of the propellers or something, it's going to tumble into the ocean and you'll lose all your footage. So if you fancy not losing your expensive equipment and all the footage you've shot, definitely, word to the wise, just keep your distance from the sea stacks. You can get really awesome video and photo without getting really close, and I just highly recommend that you not do that. And so we'll also be following that best practice as well while we're out there. But looking forward to all the footage that we will get. The other thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that when we were planning this trip, we were looking at when in August we might want to do it. And every summer in August in the Northern Hemisphere, we get the Perseid meteor shower. So this is maybe one that you've heard of because it happens every year. But if you haven't, all meteor showers are named for the constellation that is their origin point, right? So you may hear of the Leonid or the Orionid. These are in the constellations Leo and Orion. The Perseid meteor shower is in the constellation Perseus. So that means when we say that's the radiant point, that is the area that all of the meteors are coming from. So if you were to draw a straight line back on every shooting star that you see, it will trace a line back to Perseus. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be looking at Perseus all night in order to see meteors. They fall all over the sky. It's just the lines will all trace back to that constellation. And we picked this weekend because it coincides with the Perseid meteor shower. And I also noticed that, happily, the moon is actually going to be almost new. So very little moonlight to compete with the light from the stars, the Milky Way, and the meteor shower. So this is really kind of a confluence of good luck and also planning, whereby we're going to be out on the beach, out on the coast, in a pretty good dark sky site, underneath the meteor shower with no moonlight to compete with it. So lots of opportunity here for great photography, and I'm really excited to get out there. In that case, I just got some packing to finish, and then I'll see you guys in the morning. After a stunning sunset at Point of Arches, we returned to our campsite to wait for nightfall. There were still some very thin clouds hanging in the sky, but as the sky grew darker, the Milky Way and the stars emerged. We went out to the beach just in front of our campsite with our cameras and started shooting pictures of the Milky Way. The waves crashing on the beach were still plainly visible in spite of the total darkness. They seemed to my eyes as if they were lit by moonlight, but the moon was nowhere to be found in the sky. When I looked at the back of the camera to review a photo I'd taken, I was astonished to see bright blue light coming from the surf. Though it was too faint to detect with the naked eye, bioluminescent organisms were illuminating the waves all up and down the beach like neon. This was why the waves seemed to glow with the moonlight. In the morning, we got up before sunrise and hiked north along the beach. The plan was to get beyond the border of the national park to catch the morning sunrise. Low clouds to the north and the east, though, muted the impact of the rising sun. But in spite of that, we sent the drones up to explore. When we got back to camp, we retrieved our bear can to enjoy a warm drink on the beach. Soon, though, mist rolled in on the ocean air, and our coastal forest was enshrouded. As the sun rose high enough in the sky to shine down on the beach, the forest behind us erupted with golden rays of sunlight. Time slowed in the late morning as we waited for the tide to recede. We sat around and enjoyed the beach life. The plan for this day was to walk down to Point of Arches around 4 p.m. during low tide, and see how much of it we could explore on foot. We'd eat dinner down there and spend 6 or 7 hours waiting for the sun to set and the stars to come out. Soon enough, the tide had receded, and we could stroll the sandy flats on our way back out to the Point of Arches.